What is up and welcome back to Talk Nutrition. Today we are finally back after a mini hiatus. I think we skipped 1 week of podcasting and I've just been a little bit out of it, to be honest with you. It's been a bit of a crazy time. I'm not sure if you caught it a couple episodes ago when I was going to record a couple podcasts on the road. The van broke down, all that stuff. So that happened. Had to actually scrap the van. So that whole thing, that didn't work out, the whole plan. So no camper van. However, I will be going on the road the upcoming week. So basically from the day this launches, I'll be in Oslo for a couple of days. I'm actually getting a car down there and then I'm driving up north. So I still get to do a big road trip. I'm going to be camping in my tent this time. Still doing a lot of work in the meantime as well. So it's no camper van situation, but it's still going to be a really nice week of getting out in the mountains, being out in nature, and still getting that, little end of summer trip in. Because that was my whole point, trying to get that camper. I was like, I'm going to go from place to place, hang out in this area for a little bit, of course, still do my work and all of that. A lot of meetings these days too, a lot of calls, with the clients and, building stuff in the background. So it's like work as well as traveling, So now we're going to just, cram that into like 1 week of hitting spots, right? Camping, hiking, and then going back north. So I'm excited. Now, that being said, I wanted to speak to something that comes up all the time with my people. Something that is often, I think people still fall kind of like into that all or nothing here, because it's often like, hey, now I'm off plan, right? I fucked up. Might as well try again. And what I'm speaking to is social settings, right? But what I think is important to not skip here is that we learn from those moments. And that is one thing I don't see enough of. Hey, you just try again, don't have to be perfect. That's true. We talk about this all the time. But if we do not learn from our mistakes, we do not get to that point of, hey, now I'm achieving food freedom. Now I actually can include vacations, evenings out, etc. Right? So that's what I wanted to dive into today. I just put up a blog basically yesterday. By the time this launches, it's going to be 1 day since I put it up on the website. So if you want, you can go to your show notes, check out the blog as well. But I wanted to dive into this topic starting with a big picture approach. Because I could give you another, 10 hacks for including, social settings and evenings out, whatever. But it's going to be too general. It's going to be without any context. And you see this all the time on social media, right? The best tips. But then again, there's no actually addressing of your actual roadblock, the actual thing that led to the thing happening, right? Whether that's overeating, whether it's undereating, right? So let's dive in. Sustainably including social settings is one of the biggest roadblocks for many people to overcome. It's relatively simple to dial in your nutrition and habits when you're following your usual day-to-day. You go to work, school, etc. You know what that follow. That's pretty simple. When you're prepping your own meals, when you're cooking, right, you're fully in charge. But what do you do when you don't follow your usual routines? What do you do when you go out for food with friends, you gather with a family, you go on vacation? For a lot of people, right, unfortunately, that's going to be like an all or nothing thing where, hey, I did very well, and now I get to, right, I deserve it. I get to splurge. And yes, I want you to enjoy, don't get me wrong. I want you to enjoy. I want you to enjoy doing your vacations, your evenings, right? All that good stuff, the weekends. But we need to also make sure that we do things in moderation as well, right? And it could be big picture, it could be small or short term, So that being said, what do you do when you go out for food? In this podcast, we wanted to break down exactly what to do when you could not plan for your meals. 3 simple steps to follow, which are designed to be repeatable, right? Or repeated. And I'd create more balance around social settings. Because let's be honest, there is no health and fitness odyssey without going out for food, right? You're not going to skip that. You're not going to skip the holidays or vacations. This stuff needs to be included, but it's way more than a here, right? Do this or do this. No, let's dive into the things that we tend to struggle with, and that's going to be individual. That's why there's not one right answer for everyone. So I'm going to ask you to do one thing with this episode. Please apply the steps that you're about to learn. These will only work if you work them. If you actually make a point of taking what you learn in this episode, applying it for the week, weekend, whatever, seeing how you do, right? Learning from it. Try it out. You can keep listening to podcasts, but until you actually do the thing, right? Nothing happens. So let's take action on this immediately. Cool? Promise yourself that. Now, I'm going to say this too. This is maybe going to be more confronting than you might have expected opening up this podcast, because here's the thing, right? Usually you would get like a, hey, do this, or have, and we'll talk about this too, but like have protein before you go and eat slowly and all this stuff. Yeah, okay, cool. But what was the thing that led to the overeating? That's what we were trying to get to here. Those are the things we need to overcome. So let's dive in. The first step in this process, right? Let's call it a 3-step framework that's repeatable. The first step is reflecting on your past experiences. We gotta start with awareness. Because did you know that the information and the feedback that you need to improve is already there? Like, you already have it. All we need to do is extract it from your brain and you'll know exactly what needs work. Now, many people respond to these slip-ups by adding cardio and eating more or eating less maybe, right? Based on whatever happened. And they might even give up. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. There we go. People sometimes just give up after one evening, And it's like, okay, well, I get it. I get that you're discouraged. Absolutely. But that is actually something we cannot let happen over and over again. Yes, try again, right? Try again on Monday. You hear it all the time. But what happened? Most people don't take that moment to self-reflect and to address, to really find out why things happened. Now, this could be potentially ignorance. A lot of people don't know, because I see very few coaches actually talk about this kind of stuff. Because usually you just get the quick fix hack, right? Do this, or here's what I do. Yeah, great. But here's the thing too. Another reason why I think people tend to skip this is that people, generally speaking, right? Us humans, like, we don't like confrontation. That goes with other people, right? But also with yourself, like looking in the mirror. So that's when that becomes like, hey, I'll try again. But you keep trying again. And those typical behaviors are exactly what keeps people stuck from progressing towards their goals. So the trick is not to do what they do. That's the trick here. That's the secret, right? Most people think all or nothing. Most people add cardio after overeating. Most people, right, don't do what they do. Most people don't reflect. What you need to do is actually self-reflect here. Self-reflection is essential for success, which is why it's the first step here. So let's do this right now. Please go ahead and think about your evenings out recently, right? Family dinners, maybe parties, weekends, work trips, vacations, like whatever, maybe Easter, Christmas, you name it. What is one thing that you tend to struggle with there? Can you think of any episodes that you just didn't kind of feel great about? What went wrong? Did you overeat, undereat? And how did you respond in that moment, right after, and even like the next day? How did it make you feel? And don't stay at the surface level, right? Like, oh, I overate and then I felt bloated. Okay, but it's not just about what happened. Also the why. Let's explore that. As my good friend and mindset mentor, Casey Joe Orvidas, likes to say, it's all about finding that like first little domino that sets off the entire chain of events. That is what we're trying to find out here. It's not the overeating. It's not this, right? It's, hey, the thing that led up to that specific event happening. And I know these are uncomfortable questions, but only if you explore the real problem can you find the solution. And I'm purposely calling it a problem because problems have solutions. So if you haven't yet, really try to think about that, right? Evenings, weekends, whatever it is. Explore it. Dive a little deeper there. Additional questions to ask yourself. What was my effort like, right? What actually went well? Because I also don't want you to think of just the bad stuff, right? Like, no, like give yourself some credit. Hey, this worked well. Boom. Okay, cool. Now we can repeat that for next time, right? This will help you in the next step also. What can we do differently or better next time? If the same exact scenario comes up tomorrow, what is something I could try out? This one is huge, right? Because let's be honest, usually you know very well that birthday is coming up, sometimes weeks in advance. We'll turn back to this in a sec, but that also means that you can beforehand come up with something, right? Now, it's also not the only birthday in the year. So that means that usually you have a pretty good idea of how you usually do on birthdays. Is there something, right, we can do differently or better there? Or if we're like, hey, I'm actually doing pretty good, I'm fine with it, great. Keep repeating what already works, you see? But let's set out to find that first little domino. Let's sit with it with, with a bit of time and actually making a point of like unpacking it so that we can learn from those failures. Because failures are part of the Odyssey, of your journey, right? They are strategically placed along your path to test your mindset, your skills, your habits, and your ability to keep going. And to that last point, that is the only thing you can do every single time, right? That will guarantee you success long term. As long as you keep going, you're good. So let's lean into that friction, continue, it'll overcome any obstacle. The next step is going to be planning for what you'll try next time. So we just reflected, we just learned from past experiences. Now we're going to come up with a plan. Again, hey, let's imagine the same exact scenario comes up tomorrow. What are you going to do differently, right? I want you to be proactive here. Like I said just now, you know they're coming up. You know that vacation is coming up. You know when it's Christmas. I mean, guys, it's August right now, right? We know that the holidays are pretty, they're getting slowly closer, And that's okay. It's not something to worry about, but we already know they're coming. That's not a surprise. So if we go in unprepared, that is on us. 1,000%. But here's the good news. If you already know it's coming ahead of time, whether that's days or weeks or months even, that puts you in a unique position to start to brainstorm about this beforehand and just take your time, right? Because it doesn't have to be an in-the-moment decision. And I think a lot of people, which is why they fail, I think a lot of people try to make too many in-the-moment decisions without kind of thinking about it. Because here's the cool thing. If you brainstorm on what may happen, and I want you to think, hey, the best possible scenario as well as the worst possible scenario, right? If you've already thought through those scenarios and what would happen step by step, you've kind of already been there so you can, right, execute better. But the whole point is to plan. And I'm not planning all of my meals. And I'm not saying you need to, right, be specific with your tracking and all of that. Yes, there's tools we can use. We can even get into, looking up menus and blah, blah, blah. Pre-tracking, sure. But I'm saying planning specifically for how you want to deal with the situation. And hey, by the way, like maybe you're fine with restaurant meals. Cool. You're good then. If you struggle with it, this is for you, right? But I also want you to know that planning and thinking of what you're going to try and do doesn't have to come down to just you by yourself. Like if you don't have the experience yet, if you don't really know what to do, then ask for help. It's okay to ask for help, right? Everyone does that. I do it all the time. Like anytime I've gotten stuck in business, in fitness, whatever it is, in life, I reach out for people or to people, right? I reach out for help and people will help you out. People who are ahead of where you are at will give you a helping hand. So that being said, if you do have a hard time with social settings, those kind of things, please know that you can always DM me on Instagram. I'll link that in the show notes as well. I'm not here to, sell shit or whatever it is. I'm literally just like, hey, I know what that's like, right? 2012, which by now is like 12 years ago. Like, I was in a spot where I didn't know what to do. And I should have, right? Or could have really used a lot more help from people who knew their shit. But it took me a long time of like messing around and like basically like making all mistakes, right? Until I got to that point. And I want you to not go through that. So that's why I'm saying, like, hey, reach out. You can reach out to me anytime. And I really mean that. Because I've been there, right? If you are going to follow these steps though, going back to planning, right? Please get clear on your goals. Set realistic expectations for yourself. Consider where you're at in your journey. If you're like a beginner, don't be too hard on yourself. Like give yourself some grace. Like understand that you're still in the learning stages, right? You're not going to get it perfect right away, and that's okay. What are your goals? If you're maintaining, evening out, not a big deal, right? Hey, even if you're in a fat loss phase, planning for a refeed day, for example, totally doable. If you're in a muscle gain phase, lean gaining, bulking, whatever you want to call it, cool. Plenty of calories in your budget. Now you still don't want to overshoot because we're going to gain a whole bunch of body fat. But again, think about the phase you're in. Zoom out. Hey, big picture. Does this really make that much of a difference? Or can I get away with an evening that's a little bit more imperfect in quotes? What habits are already in place? This goes back to giving yourself grace too. If there's certain things that you struggle with, please know as well that the evening's out, right? It's going to eventually get there, but you might take some time still, and that's okay. We know that, It takes multiple months to create a new habit. Which habits have not yet been formed? So what do you have in place? What don't you have in place? And based off of that, you'll probably know like what's realistic for you to expect from yourself. Now, of course, we're not just going to talk planning. We're actually going to do the thing. You got to execute. And that's step 3 in this process. Nothing will happen until you actually do the thing. The only thing that will give you the future information you're going to need, because guess what? Like I said, it's supposed to be repeated, right? After step 3, doing the thing, right? Executing, you're going to have to go right back into reflecting. We're going to have to be proactive here because, and there's, again, people often say, hey, I'll just try again. But there's no realization of like what went wrong, but what did I do differently this time? That's a huge one. Because if, like, let's say we now have a great time, plus we don't overeat, whatever it is, but we still don't realize what we did differently, we might still fuck up in the future, right? And there's still no learning involved. So also there, right? Think about what happened. What are you going to do differently? Come up with a plan, and then, of course, do the thing. Now, right away, reflect on it again, see how I did. Again, it's also not to beat yourself up. It's not just, what went wrong. No, like, look at the positive too. Hey, what's your effort like? High, boom, okay. What was maybe a little win that you can take away from the weekend? What went well? What can I take and do again or even better next time, right? So that being said, I want to kind of give you a little example. So let's say, for example, we reflect. Okay, last time I overate because I didn't eat as much during the day. I wanted to save calories for the evening, which made me more hungry before even getting to the restaurant. And then before we got the food, I devoured 2 full, bread baskets already. And I'm guilty of this in the past. Like, I used to do this all the time. The food was still nice, right? Maybe I enjoy, and I'm just kind of, painting a picture here. Let's say we still had a great time. We still enjoyed all the food, but afterwards we kind of felt like a balloon, guilty from overeating. And the rest of the week I was like, oh, I kind of fucked up my macros. Now we get into planning, right? So we have that realization, okay, so we saved calories, we overdid it, and it backfired because we ended up eating more in the evening because we were so hungry. Okay, next time, maybe I'm not going to undereat during the day, but instead prioritize filling meals with lots of protein. I like the restaurant and I still don't want to restrict, and I want to enjoy all those meals, of course. So what I'm going to do is maybe go a little bit lighter during the day. Maybe I'm going to drop my fats. I'm going to increase the filling foods. Maybe have a big salad with a good amount of protein, saving myself some calories, but not overdoing it. Then, additionally, what I can do is have a protein shake before I leave. So that's going to keep me full a little bit longer so that I can, right, maybe have some bread and not the whole thing twice. Of course, if you want some, totally great, fine, of course. But, right, we're not overdoing it in this case. Much better. Now we're actually satiated until we get that first course, right? And then, of course, doing the thing, right? Okay, let's say we prepped a big salad for that lunch. We had it with a good amount of protein. We filled ourselves up with, good amount of foods, just, fiber rich, micronutrient dense, voluminous foods. We feel good, much better instead of starving going into that restaurant, right? I had a protein shake before I went. And you know what? In the moment, like at the restaurant, I was more mindful too. I try to eat slowly, chew my food, and just make sure that I enjoyed that meal and had a good time. And I felt way better afterwards. You see, now we can go in, okay, hey, this worked well for me. Hey, this is something, maybe the salad with, good amount of protein. I'm going to keep that in. The protein shake before I go, I kind of like that. Hey, I noticed that if I eat slowly, I'm more in tune with my natural satiety cues. Boom, okay, that helped me. Perfect, right? Or let's say the whole thing just does not work out at all. At least you know what doesn't work. And now you can go back to the drawing board. And that's one thing I want you to know. Because you're not going to know if your plan works until you actually follow it. A lot of times, you're going to have to redo this many, many times over. You might feel discouraged, where you're like, fuck, okay, that's the 5th time I, drank 2,000 calories worth of alcohol. I'm over exaggerating, but you get it, right? I keep doing, like, anytime I go here, this happens. Anytime I go to work, Friday afternoon, my colleagues have donuts, I give in. Okay, let's keep trying, because it's not that you are a failure by failing. It's just that we haven't really figured out what will work for you. And that's why this podcast was not going to be a 10 ways to blah, blah, blah. Like, no, we first need to see what you struggle with. Because what's that first domino? Why are you overeating? It's usually not even the food in the set scenario. It could be mindset related. It could be fatigue. It could be so many different things. And if we really dive deep, hey, where were we? Who were you with, right? How did I feel? What emotions? Okay, now we can start to notice, hey, okay, well, I notice that when I'm with these kind of people, I'm often peer pressured into X, Y, Z. This doesn't make me feel good, but then I give in. I have a hard time saying no. Okay, now we can get into the actual first domino, like I said before. But keep working on this stuff. Keep working on it. Take your time. You're not going to get it right away usually, and that is okay. And if you do, amazing, cool. But that I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be something else, somewhere else in life, right, where you do have a hard time. Apply the same framework. It's not all or nothing. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's not on or off plan. But we do need to make a point of actually continuing to play this game. Let's turn it into a game where the only way you can win is by actually playing the game and just not stopping. Does that make sense? I know this is way more vague. I know this is way more big picture. And maybe you were hoping for like 10 hacks or whatever. And I will make sure that, for example, as we get closer to the holidays in a couple months, maybe we will dive a little deeper. And maybe we will discuss this where, hey, I'm going to share my favorite ways for, not gaining weight during the Christmas holiday. And I have a few go-tos for myself, right? But still then, it's going to be without context. So I wanted to start here, and I'll return to this maybe next quarter. Similar kind of, right? We're going to talk more about special scenarios, and we'll take it from there. But I wanted to start here. I wanted to teach you the process that will allow you to always continue to level up if you work it, right? If you apply what you learned today. So can you think of something? Can you think of something where you were like, okay, this one is like, that's the one for me. Let's say family dinners. Let's say Friday night with the friends. Let's say holidays, vacations, whatever it is. When you know what you struggle with and you are brave enough, courageous enough to confront yourself with the things you struggle with and look in the mirror and really dive a little deeper and find that first little domino, right? You will win eventually. So thank you for listening once again. I want to kind of give you a little bit of a fun fact here to where you'll kind of know what to expect maybe once you catch on to it. So I created a 12-week course for our clients. 12 weeks of all things nutrition, training, mindset is a big component of it, right? Anything from periodization and building meals, macros, to self-reflection, journaling, those kind of things. Of course, special scenarios. Now, I was like, okay, 12-week course, a quarter has 3 months, right? Which is just about 12 weeks. Okay, I'm just going to speak to what's in the course. I wanted to give you that little fun fact because as you are following along to the podcast, you get to learn the things that are discussed in our course. Now, if you want to really dive deeper, you can always reach out to me, right? About one-on-one coaching or maybe just getting that course, which is not an official thing yet. We're going to launch that next year. Hit me up, right? If you want to know more. But I wanted to really speak to those things because here's the thing, right? We know exactly what my clients struggle with. Those are the things we talk about. And I want to bring that to the podcast as well in the blogs, right? So that being said, this week, the special scenarios. Next week, you'll find out. But once you start to pay attention, even on a quarterly basis, you'll start to see, okay, so in the beginning, we're talking about this. Week 4, okay, related to the perfect day. Okay, now special scenarios. So you can expect another special scenarios kind of, theme for the week exactly in a quarter from now, or just about, right? Fun fact. Anyway, thank you for listening once again. I know I had a little bit of a weird time where, I kind of fell off, but we're back and we're here to stay. So I'll talk to you soon.